Today we're just going to make a sandbag, and using just the typical nylon sandbags you can get from any hardware store. Typically you can take usually I just use play sand to fill it. I mean, some people put in pebbled gravel, but I prefer the sand. And each one of these bags is about, you can always weigh it ahead of time, is about 30 to 35 pounds. So some people like to have a heavier bag, some people like to have a lighter. So these bags work really well, about this size for like a 30-pound bag. I found 30 to 35 work pretty well. So obviously some people just choose to wrap up a play sandbag and just go with that. But I prefer to kind of make my own so that they're a little bit more user-friendly, especially when you're using it for workout purposes. So again, you can ahead of time. I typically will like to give myself a guide. So this is kind of like about the width of a bag that I would want to maximum to be. So I've folded it over and I've taped those edges. You don't have to do that, but you can do that if you're worried about a guide. You can obviously get your sand, and you can use a solo cup or some kind of cup, and you can get in there your sand and then obviously put it into your bag. Okay, so I went ahead, just for time's sake, I went ahead and changed over, because a lot of people, if you don't do the pre-taping for a guide of that bag, or when you start filling it, it will come out. You just can tie off the top here like you would just a traditional sandbag, and we're going to transform it. So again, tying it off doesn't have to be an exact science. We're just tying it off here. I usually will use some duct tape to reinforce that tying, and it doesn't, obviously there's a lot of different type of duct tapes out there. I mean, I usually go with what's on sale. Obviously the Gorilla tape is more expensive, but that does seem to have a thickness that holds up a little bit better than most other duct tapes, but I've used it all, and none of them last forever. So if you're wanting to find one that'll last forever, I haven't found that yet. Okay, so obviously once we tied it off, when we sealed that top, all we have to do is then work that bag out and kind of get the sand to be partially through. And then, as you can see, I've kind of fashioned that into more of a longer bag that is well suited for shoulder work or things like that. So once I've got it into the shape that I have, I'll just kind of or shape that I want, I'll just kind of do a preliminary tape that off. Because I found, just if you go with one, now I found it's best to double bag. So if you go with one bag, obviously that can work. I feel like if you double or triple bag, that's kind of ideal. So real quick, we'll double bag this one. And again here, the tying off, again, it doesn't have to be fancy, because we're going to use the duct tape really to secure the bag. It's really not the ties, we're just, okay. Real quick, do the tape around. Okay, so now we've got this double bagged. Taped over. tape this end down. All right, so we've got it secure. Now if you want to, I've found it typically for longevity of the bags, or if you're starting with really dry sand and you don't want to get the sand wet, I find it doesn't matter, it dries through it all eventually. Will dry, or they'll get cracks even in the plastic. You can put it in a trash bag as well. I'll show that really quick. So you could just duct tape it up here. Just duct tape as much duct tape as you want it and be good to go. Obviously, you know, try to cover the entire bag up with duct tape. Typically it'll take a roll, maybe a little bit more than one roll. But I'll show you with this is a contracting trash bag. Those are a little bit thicker. Obviously you could use a regular trash bag or do 2 or 3 regular trash bags. One nice thing about having the bag on there is it does allow for some plastic, which does allow for a small amount of cushion between you and the sand. Obviously, if you're using pebbled gravel, it's probably more of a priority to have a little bit of cushioning because the gravel can become pretty coarse if you're trying to do, again, doing a lot of workout with it. So again, as you can see, it doesn't have to be anything fancy here. All I'm trying to do is get most of this down. I've typically found that doing end over end first, doing some end over end first to kind of help you get that form shape. So doing your end over end and then coming back and doing a cross typically works the best. And again, you know, you can kind of have fun with it, use whatever pattern that you want to do. Obviously, as you can see, I've found that there's not really, I've tried to do it where I get really uniform, but the bottom line is then afterwards, or as you go, you really want to adhere that tape to it. And as you can see, there's a little bit of give to this bag. There's not a lot, but you know, in person. So you have that bag that's gonna be, it's gonna give a little bit, bend a little bit, versus just carrying around a boulder. So again, you just duct tape the rest of this bag up. I won't finish that out because I think you guys can get the gist of that. But there you go, functional training and making your own sandbag.